talk a little bit now about the best way to organise your time at home if you want to improve at chess. No matter what your level, not everybody can afford a coach, and it's important to use your time really, really effectively at home in the best possible way. For improvers, the very best way is study chess a little bit each day, and I generally recommend something like 20 minutes a day for young players and improving chess players. But for those 20 minutes, you have to give 100% attention to what you're doing. Now, when you're studying chess, and I mean every day, every single day, even Christmas Day, your birthday, your holidays, whatever, just set aside a little bit of time each day to study chess. If you run the numbers on this one, you'll find that 20 minutes a day equates to 1 hour and 40 minutes a week, 52 weeks a year. Okay, you're looking at about 80, 90 hours per year studying chess. Well, for improvers, for each of those 80, 90 hours a year, I'd be looking to improve, say, half a grading point in local currency. So if you're improving 45 points a year, whether it be ELO points or in your local grading system, that's a big improvement. And if you look at it over 5 years, okay, that's going to slow down because the better you get at chess, the more difficult it is to rack up those rating points. But if you look at it, the initial improvement is really good. And that's a very modest half a rating point per hour put in at the board. What type of routine should you work out for yourself? Well, it's got to be varied. And when you're starting out in chess, by far the most important thing is to play. You've got to play, I would say, a lot more than you study. Probably for every 3 hours of study, you should be playing 4 hours of chess. So get onto the internet, to either Internet Chess Club, to Play Chess, or to Chess Cube. Get yourself an account and start playing chess. A variety of opponents at a variety of time levels. Variety is the spice of life. And this is true for the studying as well. Studying tactics, studying endgames. Looking over games of great players is a really good way to improve. I know players really who hardly play chess over the board, and simply by studying at home, looking over game anthologies or games from the newspapers, high-level games, that they were able to improve at a massive rate. But of course, you've got to have the self-discipline to do it. And if there are any kids watching this DVD, you'll know that you have a lot of things which you're interested in. But if you can set aside 20 minutes a day, and that's not a lot to ask, you will make a massive improvement. Coming back to this idea of playing, if you can get lots of different types of opponents, then this is the best way to structure your playing schedule. You should be very happy to play weak opponents. You can thrash them, but in the end you don't learn very much from thrashing weak opponents. What you do get, of course, is a confidence boost. That's good. The best opponents to learn from are players who are slightly better than you. Not players who are much better, although it's quite humbling and also quite good to play players who are much better than you, because then you'll get thrashed yourself. And when you get thrashed, you tend to think a lot about why you got thrashed. And just by thinking in that manner, that is how you improve. But the people who are slightly better than you can teach you lessons which you can understand. Which brings me to my next game. It was from the British Championship in 2010. And it's a game between International Master Alexei Slavin and the Super Grandmaster Michael Adams. Now at this level, you might think, oh, there's a huge difference between the top world-class Grandmaster and the good International Master. But that's not true. The difference is actually not that great. But it's great enough for Slavin to have learned some very valuable lessons from this game. Now you might think, why is he showing me these Grandmaster games? I'm only an improver. Well, I've learned as a coach it's very important not to dumb down the audience. By showing them Grandmaster games, you're immediately getting them used to looking at high-level chess. This is where you really improve. Don't be satisfied with second best. Go for the best games you can find. Well, Slavin was white, and he played the very solid Queen's Pawn, and Michael Adams responded with, again, a very, very solid way of playing the Queen's Indian defence. Black's setup is harmonious. He's probably going to put his bishop on b7, which controls a nice diagonal. The bishop on f8 is free, and very importantly, black gives himself lots of options with his pawns. He can put these pawns on d7 and c7 wherever he likes. So it's a very flexible setup. Well, white played his bishop to d3. Now a word or two about white's setup. White played this weird move e3. It's weird to an improver, but to Slavin it was part and parcel of his opening system. Basically, when you play such a move, you've got to have a very good idea what you're going to do with the bishop on c1. That bishop can't stay there for long, blocked in. So white's probably thinking about playing b3 and bishop b2 to improve the lot of that bishop. Without these moves, white's setup makes no sense whatsoever. So we're waiting to see white getting that bishop into the game. White's setup, though, is not dangerous. It's just quiet. And it shows respect for the opponent, really. I mean, I think Slavin's possibly showing Michael Adams too much respect. The general procedure for weaker players when they're playing a very strong opponent is to try to get the attack. Well, knight e5. Again, this is a move which I'm not sure about. Possibly Slavin was trying to get Michael Adams into an unfamiliar position, but I'm really not sure about that move. I mean, I think when black plays d5, white should just settle for b3 to get his bishop out, as directed. Okay, this is going to lead to a roughly balanced position, but that's maybe the best white can do. Adams keeps it simple, using one of our maxims earlier. You know, this applies even at Grandmaster level. He can't quite see what white's up to, so he settles for just simple development. One piece after the other. Pawn up to c5, taking the centre, castling on the king side, bishop to d6. It's very harmonious for black. And he's saying to white, well, try and make headway against this. You've obviously put your knight on e5. You're maybe thinking of a king side attack. I think your game is slow. I think you can't mate me using these slow means. So I'm just going to get my pieces out and you can do what you must. It's very hard for white to make progress against black's position. And this is the way Adams plays. He plays very, very solidly. He's a player who has superb tactical control. And because of this, he's able to eventually beat even the strongest of opponents. Well, white played b3, showing respect for his bishop. And now black played a very interesting move here, b5. The point of this move is purely tactical. If we check all our captures and our checks, we see that white can take this pawn, but black was intending to go c takes d4 after that. And if c takes d4, Adams was going to play queen to b6, with a double attack on the bishop and the pawn. If the black queen's allowed to come into d4 check, that's a very nasty fork. The white king and the white rook in the corner is forked. Black didn't like that at all. He played c3 and black played b4. So what Slavin has learned already from this game is that you can't take liberties against strong players. Yes, you can play all this slow stuff. It might intimidate weaker players, but it will not worry the very strongest players. So he's obtained no advantage from the opening whatsoever against Adams. In fact, he may even be slightly worse. And he'll have to play something different next time. Okay, well, white's got to make the best of it now. He took on b4. Black took on d4, messing up the white pawns. And now black holds a slight advantage. White has what we call here an isolated pawn on d4. It's isolated because it can't be protected by any of its own pawns. It's weak, it can be attacked. Black has no weakness in his camp which white can attack. That is why black has the advantage. It's not much, but it's something. And super grandmasters like to work with small edges. They know that the opponent's not likely to make huge game-losing blunders, so they just work with small edges, build their position, small improvements, bit by bit, bit by bit. It's like Chinese water torture. Eventually, the opponent collapses because the super grandmasters accumulated all these advantages to make something big. Well, white continues, defending his pawn. He brings his knight across to defend. Black brings his bishop back to d6. And now white goes a3. This is an interesting move. I remember I was watching this game at the time, and to play these moves, Slavin was using up an awful lot of time. This is another characteristic of playing stronger players. They force you to think about the position a lot, much more than you would normally do. It's like an intimidation in a way. And white spend an eternity on this move a3. What he was obviously working out was that after queen takes b3, rook a b1, queen retreats, bishop a1 attacking the queen, queen c7, rook fc1, he would have compensation for the pawn based on attacking power of his rooks on the queen side. Well, again, Adams makes a very interesting move here, a5, and he made it immediately. So whereas Slavin was thinking for half an hour on this move, a3, working out all the complications, Adams just thinks, okay, well, I'm not going to go for any of those complications. Why should I? Even if they are good for me. I'm just going to make a practical move, a5. You've wasted half an hour on the clock. And indeed, a5 is a very good move. So Slavin also learns that practicality in chess is very important. No good spending half an hour on a clock and getting into time trouble if you make mistakes later on. Keep it natural, keep it simple. Rook ac1, well, that's not too bad, bringing a rook to the open file. Bishop takes e5, f takes e5, and now knight e4. Bishop takes e4, d takes e4, and now Slavin makes a very strange move. Knight g5. This is a clear sign to me that he's actually afraid of Adams. I think against virtually any other opponent, he would have taken that pawn on e4. I mean, White had to play that move. Adams has deliberately given away that pawn, mind you, because he intends to go knight e7. The idea of this is to open up the long diagonal for his bishop. That bishop on b7 has become extremely powerful. The knight on e7 is getting ready to station itself on beautiful squares in the centre, and black still has the attack on b3. So black has what we call really good compensation for the pawn. But White had to play this way. He had to. I think after the game, Slavin would reflect on this position and think to himself, well, I definitely showed a lack of courage here. And that's another very common thing when you're playing really strong players. For some reason, players lose their bottle. They don't play moves they would normally make because they're just worried that the opponents see more than they have. You've got to believe in yourself in chess. Well, after knight takes d4, White's position goes downhill very quickly. Adams just won that pawn in the centre. He attacks the knight. Slavin tries a desperate last stab at counterplay. It's no good. He comes in with a check, king g8, and now White has no moves. If he takes the bishop, as he did, queen a1 check, forces checkmate. The White king is trapped on the back rank. So when you're playing, and you're playing a variety of opponents, however you like to work it out, try to learn something from every game you play. Slavin would have learned a lot from this game by playing a slightly better opponent. He would have learned that his whole opening strategy was too slow. He would have learned something about himself, that he lacked courage in certain positions against really strong players. He didn't have the confidence to play complex positions. And he would also learn that tactical control of the position is really, really important. Adams had that tactical control,